Okay, good morning. It's been raining all night. It's quite chilly, in fact. So much for spring. Okay, so today we're going to talk about Therizinosaurus. I've got a little model here. Therizinosaurus, it's a dinosaur from the late Cretaceous of the Gobi Desert in Mongolia. We'll talk more about that. I don't want to get collector. This is an amazing model from, you can get one if you want, from the Dinosaur Emporium. Alright, so let's crack on. Therizinosaurus. So what does the name Therizino mean? So now a scythe is one of those long blades to cut crops. So you might have seen that somewhere. I know we use combine harvesters and tractors and all that kind of stuff, but back in the day they used to cut the crops, the wheat, mostly barley, with a scythe. Now we talk about the Grim Reaper, that guy who goes around and cuts down souls, which he does with the passage of time. But this is a happy post, so we're not going to talk about the Grim Reaper. We'll leave him to his own devices today. And we're going to talk about Therizinosaurus. So where does the name Therizinosaurus come from? Well, it's got these amazingly long claws. I'll put up another picture. And so that's the origin of the name. So as we've already alluded to, Therizinosaurus lived in the late Cretaceous in what is now the Gobi Desert in Mongolia, which lies to the north of China, a vast country with China as its southern border. So the late Cretaceous, that's about 70 million years ago, and if you haven't been watching my other videos, the time when the dinosaurs lived was called, or is called, the Mesozoic. So that's the Triassic, Jurassic and the Cretaceous. There's three geological periods, and the Cretaceous is the last, and that came to an end when a huge asteroid hit the Earth 66 million years ago, and all the dinosaurs went extinct, and about 75% of all other life too. Alright, so there's another video on that. I'll put the link below about extinction and all those kind of things, so you can go and watch that video, which is part of this whole Dinosaur outreach. So there's all sorts of videos about paleontology and rocks and minerals, where we're opening the doors to learning via this YouTube channel. Alright, so let's crack on. Okay, so to recap, Therizinosaurus lived in the late Cretaceous about 70 million years ago in the Gobi Desert in what is now Mongolia. So if we haven't met before, my name is Gerald Davey and I head up the Dinozone. So the Dinozone is all about dinosaurs. I am the Dino Man. So we've got the physical Dinozone Dinosaur Park, where you can come and visit if you're geographically close to us. And we've got our website, and we've got this YouTube channel, and we've got an Instagram account, and we've got a Facebook page. So we'd love it if you came along and engaged with us and watched these videos and followed us on Instagram and Facebook and joined the Facebook group. And we look forward to you coming to visit us at the Dinozone. So the whole aim of this is to get everybody interested in paleontology, and then through that gateway, interested in the earth sciences and science, and open the doors to learning for everybody. And of course we're going to have a huge amount of fun as we go along too. So what's not to like about that? So this is the fourth video in our Keys to the Dinosaur Kingdom series. So my apologies, we've been a little bit missing in action over the last few weeks. We've been organising a new shed for the dinosaur park, so that's been taking up time. We've been making a sluice, so you can come along and discover your own gemstones, a mining sluice. So we're going to sieve out gems out of the sand. It's going to be absolutely fantastic, and generally speaking we'll be doing a whole lot of upgrades and having fun. So we're looking forward to opening that sooner rather than later and inviting you all there. So going back to the Keys to the Dinosaur Kingdom series, I'm going to give you a code at the end of this video, which is part of a larger, combination of codes that once entered into the software will give you free access to the Dinosaur Kingdom. So stick around to the end and I will verbally give you that number, that 7-digit number. Randomly generated, hey? ChatGPT, so fantastic. Please will you generate me a 7-digit random number? Sure thing, it says, and that pops a number literally in a second. Artificial intelligence, ain't pretty smart. Okay, so let's crack on with Therizinosaurus. So the first bones of Therizinosaurus were dug up in 1948 by a Soviet-led expedition to the Gobi Desert. And then the bones were described several years later by a Russian paleontologist, Evgeny Maleev, in 1954. So we haven't exactly got a pile of bones to work with. They're pretty limited. In fact, there are very few bones. So out of that miserable stash, paleontologists had to work out what this creature actually looked like. And it wasn't such an easy job. But they did find these amazingly long claws, these scythe-like unguals claws on its arms, which gives the creature its name. Those were pretty well preserved. So you can see those. I'll get you a close-up shot of this once I've done recording here. Right, let's put that out of the way. But there have been some additional bones found later on in the 1960s, 70s, and 1980s. So that's added to our body of knowledge of what these creatures actually look like, which is great. So going back to this collector model, if you want one, you can get one at the Dinosaur Emporium. Bag yourself a specimen, hey? And I promise you, once you've got a specimen, it's going to be far more complete than what most museums have in terms of their Therizinosaurus, which is on display. So Therizinosaurus grew up to lengths of 9 to 10 meters, which for you on the other side of the Atlantic is 30 to 33 feet. It stood 4 to 5 meters tall, weighed 5 tons, and just like slow walking, slow talking Jones, this was a slow moving creature. So he had a small head, a long neck, quite a long body, obviously those long claws. By the way, and here's a good factoid, Therizinosaurus had the longest claws ever recorded of any land animal that ever walked the earth. So I've got my steel ruler here. Here's my 50 centimeter mark. And so where my finger is, that's 50 centimeters. So you can see 0 to 50, that's quite a long claw, hey? That's massive. I hear those hardy-dars kicking off. A hardy-dar is a ibis that has made itself very much at home in suburban gardens. A hardy-dar, kind of onomatopoeic sound of the sound it makes. So you might have heard them going by. Always noisy creatures. In the summer, they'll be up at 4, making their noise and keeping us all awake or waking us up, which is not a bad thing, I guess. They are very beautiful birds. Okay. Right, so let's press on with Therizinosaurus and leave hardy-dars alone. So we're talking about the size of these creatures. They had a small head, a long neck. Those arms were 2.4 meters long. Hey, that's massive. That's taller than a man. Those arms were longer than a man. These 50 centimeter long claws. That body that is, what did we say, 9 to 10 meters. These 3 meter long back legs, and then it had feet a bit like a sauropod or sauropodomorph, which, if you don't know that, a sauropod is one of these. I'm grabbing all my dinosaur specimens. So this is a sauropod, this is a brachiosaur. So creatures that looked a bit like this, a sauropodomorph. Okay, so Therizinosaurus had kind of sauropodomorph feet. Okay, so we're into all this kind of description of this amazing creature. It was bipedal, so that means it walked on 2 legs. And I guess it would have to do that. Imagine trying to walk on all 4s with those long claws. You're going to snap them off, or it's going to hook on every single thing. So it was a bipedal, slow-moving creature that wandered across the landscape, the late Jurassic landscape, and what is now the Gobi Desert. So, what else can we tell you about Therizinosaurus? So paleontologists debated for years on how to classify this animal because there are very few specimens. They couldn't really relate them to all the other creatures that they found in that Gobi Desert environment. And so it went round and round. And the problem was that there were too few bones to really work out what was going on. Maleev, who first described the creature, thought it was a large turtle-like reptile. And then the Russian paleontologist Anatoly Rostesvensky thought that it actually was a theropod dinosaur. So a theropod dinosaur walks on 2 legs and not a turtle as per the earlier classification or the earlier suggestion. And then later on, with the discovery of more bones, they were able to bolt this thing down a little bit better, and they decided that it was a sauropodomorph, which we've just seen here with the brachiosaur. And then later, with the discovery of more bones, they were able to kind of think a little bit about the classification of this animal, and they decided that it was more a sauropodomorph. And that idea stuck around for a long time. And then after some more debates, they actually decided that it was a theropod. So a theropod is a dinosaur that walks on 2 legs, much like a T-Rex walks on 2 legs, galloping across also the Cretaceous landscape. That was the suggestion by Rostesvensky. So now we know that Therizinosaurus was a herbivore, and I guess those claws were useful for pulling down fruit and getting vegetation into easy reach. However, in a showdown with a predator, I reckon those claws would also be put up and used in a fight, used for defense, although the theories are that the claws were actually quite fragile and they would have probably snapped off in that kind of altercation between a determined raptor or predator and a I guess a broken claw is better than being dead. So certainly with long claws like that, that's going to intimidate any attacker that's going to be trying to have a go at you. But whether those claws were going to stand up to a determined attack by a predator such as Tarbosaurus, which was a close relative of T-Rex, is open to debate. So at a length of 9 to 10 meters, Therizinosaurus was quite a big animal, and it stood 4 to 5 meters high. So that's 2 stories, double-story house. So that's a pretty big creature. So having that kind of height, you get access to all the lovely sweet new shoots on top of all the trees, and it takes you out of all the competition that's going on down at lower levels in the forest canopy. So that was probably a pretty useful thing for Therizinosaurus. So it will sit up there with his nose in the air, eating all the choice vegetation while all the lower life, the shorter life, is scrapping it out closer to the forest floor. So that was a pretty cool thing. So sticking with the claw theory, there have been different ideas put forward, ranging from Malif's idea, based on his classification of a turtle-like reptile, that the claws were used to harvest seaweed. So that idea was thrown out. And then the idea was put forward that those claws were used to pop open termite mounds, which sounds reasonable. And then, obviously, the thoughts of those claws could be used to gather in vegetation and get fruit off the trees, which also sounds perfectly reasonable. And then, of course, that defense theory always comes up too. And I guess when you're fighting for your life, you're going to use your teeth and your claws. Hey, I'm sure those claws got used in defense. So back in 2014, they did a study. They did a computer synthesis of the stresses that were going to be put on these claws. And so from those simulations, it worked out that the greatest stresses on the claws came from when the creature was digging in the earth. And obviously the least stresses came on the claws from that hook and pull scenario where the creature's reaching up and gathering in vegetation. So that's a tensile stress rather than a compressive stress. If you're digging your claws into the earth, you're putting those things under immense pressure. But if you're just gathering in and hooking and pulling, that's a tensile stress, and it's going to be far less stressful on the claws. So digging in the earth may well have damaged the claws, unlike when they were gathering in fruit and vegetation from the trees. So based on the studies, it's thought that much like ant bears of today, Therizinosaurus used its claws to gather in vegetation in close so that it could feed at its leisure. Being the geologist that I am, we have to look a little bit at the geology. So from the rocks where the fossils of Therizinosaurus were collected, it has been concluded that it lived in an environment of meandering rivers, braided river channels with forests in between these riverine areas. And those forests comprise large trees, able to support a whole host of creatures, including the likes of Therizinosaurus. It was pretty chilly, apparently. 8 to 10 degrees mean average temperature, with cold, dry winters and hot, wet summers. Much like the Okavango Delta of Botswana of today. So the rocks from which Therizinosaurus's bones were recovered are called the Nemegt Formation, N-E-M-E-G-T. And the largest predator of the time was none other than a relative of T-Rex. So here's T-Rex. Was Tarbosaurus. So if you Google Tarbosaurus, you'll see their skulls, their bones look very similar to those of a T-Rex. And the Tarbosaurus was the T-Rex of that environment back in the day, late Cretaceous. T-Rex also lived in the Cretaceous. It's all good for the algorithm. And ask your questions. Always want to be of assistance here and share all our paleontological and geological knowledge. So leave your comments below, and we're looking forward to that ongoing engagement. And now there's nothing left for me to do but ask you to write this number down and keep it safe, because this is part of the combination that opens up the doors to the Dinosaur Kingdom. Okay, so here's the magic number: 5728416. 5728416. 5728416. Okay, so write that down. In fact, I'm going to give you a little PDF, which I put up on all these little keys to the Dinosaur Kingdom series videos. So you can download that PDF and write down the numbers. So you just have to write the video number and the code. All right, so looking forward to that. All right, so it's been great having you along on this little Therizino journey. And finally, I must apologize for being a little bit absent, missing in action for the last few weeks. We haven't been able to make a video. We've been making all sorts of other videos, but we've been upgrading the Dinozone Dinosaur Park. We're getting a new steel shed there to house Marmaduke, the Tyrannosaurus Rex, And we've built a sluice, a mining sluice, with a water tower, a water wheel, and sieves for you to come and sieve out gemstones and take home. All right, so how cool is that? All right, so that's been sucking up huge amounts of our energy. We've got deadlines now with the festive season coming, so we're just trying to get this all done. So we've kind of had to decide, what are we going to do? We're going to do the YouTube videos, or we're going to do the dinosaur park, and we're also trying to make the Bone Diggers Club. So that's kind of where I'm going with this Keys to the Dinosaur Kingdom, because we're going to roll out this amazing thing for you guys all to involve yourself in terms of education and in terms of paleontology and dinosaurs and geology and earth sciences and education in general. All right, so once again, apologies for not being around, and but we're going to certainly rectify that in the new year. Once the dinosaur park's all sorted out and we've got our new venue up and running and everything's running smoothly, then we can put our focus back onto some of these other more, well, they're not more exciting things, but other kind of things that we need to do as we grow this channel. All right, so I'm out of here. We'll see you on the next one. But as we already said, please like, share, hit the notification button, leave your comments. All right, I'm out of here. Bye.